So everything is on the table. We don't know anything right now. With that said, I'm going to ask a very unfair question of Guy Adami, and that is, what do you think what do you think happens tomorrow? In other words, have we priced in peak uncertainty around the tariffs, and so it is to the upside tomorrow?
I think it's a fair question. I think the answer is yes. Now, it's the third time we've traded down to sort of this 5,500 level, which seemingly is, for whatever reason, a bit of a line in the sand. You had the bounce yesterday. You had the bounce today. I think that's encouraging. I don't think my instinct suggests he's not going to do something more onerous than the market has believed. I think he wants to do something down the middle, which will provide a bit of a relief rally. I think it's going to be short-lived. I'll say this as well. I think the bond market sells off on the back of that. Potentially gold, we'll see. But I think the stock market could rally on the back of that for sure.
And again, to your point about the worst-case scenarios, I think what they're trying to do right now is create a scenario where there's a base case, there's a worst case, and there's a case that's better than expected. And so I think the market reaction, we've dealt with a lot of this volatility given the uncertainty, and I think the market might really appreciate a bit of certainty about how this goes. But I don't think that guarantees any certainty, because I think that they're trying to get these other countries to the negotiating table, right? And let's just see how they respond to, these different cases. And, I think about this, and we just heard they're going to start collecting immediately. They're not collecting from these companies. They're collecting from U.S. companies that are purchasing these goods from overseas, right? And then the companies have a decision whether they want to eat the difference or raise the prices and pass it through to consumers, which might result in less sales, right? And so you think about this. We just got done with Q1, and that's kind of baked in the cake. We saw some of the consumer data. We saw some of the business confidence data, that sort of thing. So that's going to be in Q1 earnings. The Q2 guidance could just be horrible, if you think about it. The lack of clarity in even how they quantify what the consumer is going to do in response to these tariffs. So to me, that's where you get back to this uncertainty. That's why you probably have 5,500 to the downside going to 5,400, maybe 5,200.
I agree on the uncertainty. We'll have some certainty on some things, maybe, but then to the response to that, we won't have certainty there either. So when you say markets were bracing, really like feeling like just waiting to get hit,
right,
from some side or the other. And I think markets hate uncertainty more than they hate bad news, and so it doesn't feel great to. I mean, yes, we'll have some news tomorrow, a lot of news tomorrow. But I think it's going to take us a while to process it. I agree. We'll see some customers or some, the Home Depots of the world. They're powerful. They can negotiate prices with whoever their vendors might be. Some others can't. We'll see. It's going to be difficult to implement immediately, too.
Right. The other side of the uncertainty is the 10-year yield going below 4.15% today. That was an interesting move as well, Katie.
Yeah, we've seen yields really kind of pivot alongside the dollar, and that comes with the new administration. So it was a change in trend that we didn't really anticipate, but now we have long-term shifts in, say, the stochastic oscillator, things like that, that are suggesting that we will see yields come in even further, maybe even sub-4 before we come out of this. And I would agree on the relief of uncertainty. The S&P 500 does have support around 5480. The secondary support below that's about 5% below. So usually when you get that first oversold, which is what we have on a weekly bar chart of the S&P, you get a rebound, short-lived. I agree with that term. And the retest can be pretty severe, taking out the recent low, and that becomes your intermediate-term entry.
Right. The little bit that Megan had mentioned in terms of revoking the de minimis loophole, that's really interesting because that's what retailers have had to deal with. So, I mean, how can you compete against a $5 swimming suit coming from China for free shipping?
Yeah. No, this is good for Amazon. It's good for Etsy.
Target. I would Kohl's. I mean, any sort of lower price good.
Yes.